Hey, Mike.
Hare Krishna, how are you?
Good. Long time no see.
Yeah, yeah.
Just had some family stuff and last
Well,
week.
yeah. The Wednesday was a union meeting. My district had been
Union.
working with it. Yeah,
You're in a teachers union?
yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh,
And
I
then
wish my wife was in a union sometimes because she's gotten like a lot of stuff, and a lot of hospitals around here are not in unions.
no, most places aren't anymore.
No,
It's
they used to
amazing
be,
how
but
it's amazing how few jobs are actually union.
oh,
And
Melissa's
then
here.
cool. And then
Also,
Friday, my daughter had a school
she
play.
had what was on Friday?
Her play. She's in her school musical.
Oh, cool. What kind of musical was it?
They were doing Hairspray.
Oh, Hairspray. That's an 80s thing, right? Wasn't that a movie in the 80s?
They might have made it into a movie. I never saw it, but it's set in the 60s.
Oh, hey, Melissa, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi,
Anyways,
Melissa. How are you doing?
Hey, doing good.
Cool. Yeah, so it's Mike and me so far. I don't know if Benjamin's going to hop on. He said he would. Last week he forgot. So I told him to set his alarm clock. So hopefully he'll make it. So let me just try to share the screen here. Okay, we're on 9. Melissa and I covered 5 through 6, and nobody got on Friday, but that's all right. So I guess I'll start off. Text 9. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Okay. Nachamam tani karmani nirbadanti dhananjaya udasina vad asinam ashaktkam teshu karmasu. Synonyms: na, never; cha, also; mam, me; tani, all those; karmani, activities; nirbadanti, bind; dhananjaya, O conqueror of riches; udasinavat, as neutral; asinam, situated; ashaktam, without attraction; teshu, in them; karmashu, in activities. Translation: O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I'm ever detached, seated as though neutral. Purport: one should not think, in this connection, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no engagement. In his spiritual world, he's always engaged. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated, quote, he is always involved in his eternal blissful spiritual activities, but he has nothing to do with these material activities. Material activities are being carried out by his different potencies. The Lord is always neutral in the material activities of the created world. This neutrality is explained here. Although he has control over every minute detail of matter, he is sitting as if neutral. The example can be given of a high court judge sitting on his bench. I have direct experience of that because I still have my juror label right on my desk here. I put it up there as a sign of reminding me how miserable that was. I had jury duty, but it's one of the things you have to do. High court judge sitting on his bench. By his order, so many things are happening. Someone is being hanged. Someone is being put into jail. Someone's awarded a huge amount of wealth, but still he is neutral. He has nothing to do with all that gain or loss. Similarly, the Lord is always neutral, although he has his hand in every sphere of activity. In the Vedanta Sutra, it is stated that he is not situated in the dualities of this material world. He is transcendental to these dualities, nor is he attached to the creation and annihilation of this material world. The living entities take their different forms in the various species of life according to their past deeds, and the Lord does not interfere with them. So, Mike, you can read the next text, and then Melissa, on the next verse after this in text 11, I'm going to have Mike read the Sanskrit, but then can you read the first paragraph of text 11? Well, there's several paragraphs. You can read the first two paragraphs, and because actually, we'll just take turns. We'll take turns reading paragraphs to the next one because there's a lot of paragraphs.
I have
But
a
Mike,
question.
What's
the
that?
last one. I have a question about the last one.
Sure.
So it says that the judge is removed from what's going on, but I mean, it's kind of not though, right? I mean, the judge decides what happens.
Yeah, the judge is just giving his judgment as far as like rewarding the huge amount of money or condemning someone to death, or someone being put into jail, but he is not the cause of those activities. He's simply adjudicating the results of the person's actions. For example, there's another verse that says, the living entities are the causes of their own pleasure and pain. The Lord is not responsible for everyone else's karmic activities. They've created those on their own. And so the Krishna is not really responsible for the suffering. A lot of people say, well, why is there so much suffering? If there is really a God in this world, why would he cause so much suffering? But it's not God that is not causing the suffering. The living entities are all getting what they deserve and desire. And if they had some previous sinful activities, they're suffering the result of that sinful activity. And if they're enjoying a pious life, then they're engaged in that activity. But Krishna has nothing to do with this material world. He's always in his eternal abode, and he's transcendental to all material, to the material nature. The modes of material nature are in control of this world. He's controlling the modes of nature, but the living entities are being controlled. Instead of being controlled by Krishna directly, which they should be, they're actually being controlled by the material modes of nature because they want the fruits of their activities. They're trying to enjoy selfishly, and they're trying to accumulate wealth or enjoyment for themselves or their family. And as a result, they're getting the reaction of that. If they surrendered to Krishna, then they would be happy because Krishna would, then they're actually in their normal position. But if they try to enjoy separately, that's illusion. And then they have to suffer the reaction for that activity. It's kind of foolish to think that you can enjoy your own body in this material world when we're actually, part and parcel of Krishna. And when we engage in his service and serve his senses instead of our own, then we'll be in a happy position. Otherwise, if we try to serve our own senses, then we're going to have to suffer. That's just the way the world works. It's just, if you put your hand in fire, it's going to be burned. It doesn't matter if you're innocent or not. A little child is going to be burned if he puts his hand in the fire. So that's the way the world works. And Krishna is not responsible if the child puts the hand in the fire. That's not his fault. It's it's the living entity's choice to do that. So we're given independence, but the real intelligent person will surrender to Krishna and not be involved in the loss or gain of his own selfish activities, which cause suffering or enjoyment in the material world. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah.
Krishna is detached. He's like, I was telling Mike, it was kind of like that one last week. It just reminded me of a clip that I saw of Ice Cube and this other guy was trying to get him to smoke pot. And he says, you gotta, it's Friday because it's Friday and you ain't got no job and you ain't got shit to do. So he's trying to get Ice Cube to smoke some pot, but Ice Cube was sitting there, with this frown on his face, not getting into it. And so, but Krishna has nothing to do, even though the living entities are trying to enjoy in this material world, he has really nothing to do. But still, when he comes here, he engages in activities just to provide an example for everyone else to follow. He was a perfect householder when he came here to the material world. So was Lord Chaitanya. When he was a householder, he engaged in serving the sannyasis. His wife and he were engaged in hosting sannyasi, because that's the way it was in the Middle Ages, that the householder's duty was to feed everybody, and he executed his duty perfectly. So he was executing all his service as in that ashram, but still he was a supreme personality of Godhead, setting an example for the rest of us to follow. But he's never touched by material nature, even though if it appears that he's, even a devotee appears that he's engaged in material activities like taking care of their family and this and that, but they're not really, because they're completely surrendered to Krishna 100%. So a devotee or Krishna, both of them are not situated in this material world. They're all beyond the material world, and therefore there's no suffering for living for the devotees or Krishna. They're just having fun. So Mike, you want to read the next verse, text, purport, and the text of the next 11, and then we'll take turns reading.
Ayajyakshena prakriti siyate sachara charam hetunena kunteya jagat viparivartate. Synonyms. Maya, by me. Adyakshena, by superintendence. Prakriti, material nature. Suyate, manifest. Sa, with. Chara charam, moving and non-moving. Hetuna, for this reason. Anena, this. Kunteya, O son of Kunti. Jagat, cosmic manifestation. Viparivartate, is working. Translation. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Purport. It is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord, although aloof from all activities of the material world, remains the Supreme Director. The Supreme Lord is the supreme will in the background of this material manifestation, but the management is being conducted by material nature. Krishna also states in Bhagavad-gītā that of all the living entities in different forms and species, I am the Father. The Father gives seeds to the womb of the mother for the child, and similarly, the Supreme Lord, by his mere glance, injects all the living entities into the womb of material nature, and they come out in their different forms and species according to their last desires and activities. All these living entities, although born under the glance of the Supreme Lord, still take their different bodies according to their past deeds and desires. So the Lord is not directly attached to this material creation. He simply glances over material nature. Material nature is thus activated, and everything is created immediately. Because he glances over material nature, there is undoubtedly activity on the part of the Supreme Lord, but he has nothing to do with the manifestation of the material world directly. This example is given in the Smriti. When there is a fragrant flower before someone, the fragrance is touched by the smelling power of the person, yet the smelling and the flower are detached from one another. There is a similar connection between the material world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, he has nothing to do with this material world, but he creates by his glance and ordains. In summary, material nature, without the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot do anything. Yet the Supreme Personality is detached from all material activities.
Yeah, I just wanted to say before you go into the next verse, so this kind of answers the previous question a little bit. It's kind of the example of given by the smelling of the flower and the smell itself. There's one verse in one of the Upanishads. It says that Krishna creates by his will. He doesn't even directly take part in all of the activities of creation are enacted by his potent energies. So he gives the initial push, and then the material nature responds. He glances over the material world, and as a result of that, the activities of material nature are activated. It all is exactly explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, how this whole material world is manifest from subtle to gross elements. And it's all enacted by the glancing of Vishnu. And he has his different plenary portions like Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. And they're all, they're all taking a part in the creation process. The Lord Brahma is pretty much the engineer. Krishna gives him the ability to, gather all the, figure out how to create, because he's the first created being. And then he glances over the Mahatattva, the inert material elements. But it's a whole process, and it really is amazing how exacted and conclusive it is. And then when the material universe winds down, it's kind of like a reverse process. It goes from subtle to gross, and then from the inert Mahatattva, the inert material elements, it goes from earth or from air, ether, air, water, fire, earth, like that. And then when it winds down, all of these elements kind of merge into each other, and then it goes back into the Mahatattva. It's just kind of like a winding up, a reverse situation. But that happens again and again in the creation of the material universe. And it is all revealed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So you can read the first of the Sanskrit and the translation, and then we'll take turns reading the purport. Mike.
Sure. Vajananti mam mudha manusim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajanato mam bhuta maheshvaram. Synonyms. Vajananti, deride, mam, me, mudha, foolish men, manusim, in human form, tanum, body, ashritam, assuming, param, transcendental, bhavam, nature, ajananta, not knowing, mama, mind, bhuta, everything that be, maheshvaram, supreme proprietor. Translation. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be.
Yeah, this is a really famous verse. Melissa, you want to read the first paragraph?
Yes, from other explanations of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. The personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the original Supreme Personality, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samrita. He is the Supreme Lord.
There are many Ishwaras, or controller, and one appears greater than another. In the ordinary management of affairs in the material world, we find some official or director, and above him there's a secretary, and above him a minister, and above him a president. Each of them is a controller, but one is controlled by another. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, undoubtedly, both in the material and spiritual world, but Krishna is the supreme controller. Ishvara Krishna, Parama Krishna, and his body is Sat Chit Ananda, non-material. Sat means eternal, Chit, full of knowledge, and Ananda means bliss, eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. Go ahead, Mike.
Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in previous verses. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he is not a common man, the foolish deride him and consider him to be a man. His body is called here Manusim because he is acting just like a man, a friend of Arjuna's, a politician involved in the battle of Kurukshetra. In so many ways, he is acting just like an ordinary man, but actually, his body is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, eternal bliss and knowledge absolute. This is confirmed in the Vedic language also, Sat Chit Ananda Rupaya Krishnaya. I offer my obeisances under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the eternal blissful form of knowledge. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language also, Tam ekam Govindam, you are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows. Sat Chidananda Vigraham, and your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternality.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Despite the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's body, its full bliss and knowledge, there are many so-called scholars and commentators of Bhagavad-gītā who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man due to his previous good work, but this conception of Sri Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore, he is called Mudha. For only foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Lord, Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, that he is the proprietor of everything that be, and that he can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him.
Yeah, that's basically because of envy. They say, well, he's just an ordinary historical personality. Nor do they know that the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this material world is a manifestation of his internal energy. He is the master of the material energy, as has been explained in several places. Mama Maya Dharatya. He claims that the material energy, although very powerful, is under his control, and whoever surrenders unto him can get out of the control of this material energy. That's like a 12-step program. You can't get out of your addictions until you surrender to a higher power. Nobody can get out of this material world unless they surrender to Krishna. If his soul surrendered to Krishna can get out of the influence of the material energy, then how can the Supreme Lord, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the whole cosmic nature, have a material body like us? So this conception of Krishna is complete foolishness. Foolish persons, however, cannot conceive that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, appearing just like an ordinary man, can be the controller of all the atoms and of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The biggest and the minutest are beyond their conception, so they cannot imagine that a form like that of a human being can simultaneously control the infinite and the minute. Although he is controlling the infinite and the finite, he is apart from all this manifestation. It is clearly stated according to his concerning his yogam aishvaram, his inconceivable transcendental energy, that he can control the finite and the infinite and the finite simultaneously, and that he can remain aloof from them. Although the foolish cannot imagine how Krishna, who appears just like a human being, can control the finite and infinite and the finite, those who are pure devotees accept this, for they know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, they completely surrender unto him and engage in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord. Yes, a devotee will know that he controls all these things, the finite and the infinite, by his various energies. He's the supreme energetic. Everything emanates from him. He's the cause of all causes. So the manufacturer of the entire universe knows how it works, and he's the one because he's the one that created it. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. There are many controversies among the impersonalists and the personalists about the Lord's appearance as a human being. But if we consult Bhagavad-gītā and Srimad Bhagavatam, the authoritative text for understanding the science of Krishna, then we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not an ordinary man, although he appeared on this earth as an ordinary human. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 1st chapter, when the sages inquire about the activities of Krishna, it is stated that his appearance as a man bewilders the foolish. No human being could perform the wonderful acts that Krishna performed while he was present on this earth. When Krishna appeared before his father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, he appeared with 4 hands, but after the prayers of the parents, he transformed himself into an ordinary child. His appearance as an ordinary human being is one of the features of his transcendental body. In the 11th chapter of the Gita, also it is stated, Tanaiva Rupena, etc. Arjuna prayed to see again that form of 4 hands, and when Krishna was thus petitioned by Arjuna, he again assumed his original form. All these different features of the Supreme Lord are certainly not those of an ordinary human being.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Some of those who deride Krishna, who are infected with the Mayavadi philosophy, quote the following verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam to prove that Krishna is just an ordinary man. Aham sarvasu bhutisu bhutatmavasita sada. The
Perfect.
Supreme is present in every living entity. We should better take note of this particular verse from the Vaishnava Acharyas like Jiva Goswami instead of following the interpretation of unauthorized persons who deride Krishna. Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, says that Krishna, in his plenary expansion as Paramatma, is situated in the moving and the non-moving entities as the supersoul. So any neophyte devotee who simply gives his attention to the Arka Murti, the form of the Supreme Lord in the temple, and does not respect other living entities is uselessly worshiping the form of the Lord in the temple. There are three kinds of devotees of the Lord, and the neophyte is the lowest stage. The neophyte devotee gives more attention to the deity in the temple than to other devotees. So Jiva Goswami warns that this sort of mentality should be corrected. A devotee should see that Krishna is present in everyone's heart as Paramatma. Therefore, everybody is the embodiment or the temple of the Supreme Lord. And as such, as one offers respects to the temple of the Lord, he should similarly properly respect each and every body in whom the Paramatma dwells. Everyone should therefore be given proper respect and should not be neglected.
Yeah, that's the difference between a neophyte devotee, or a Kanishta Adhikari, it's called in Sanskrit, and a second-class devotee. A Kanishta Adhikari may worship the temple Archa Murti. I just wanted to also just say that Archa, A-R-C-A, it's not Arca. It's C is always pronounced C-H, usually in Sanskrit, like the Vaishnava Acharyas, not Acharyas, Acharyas like Jiva Goswami and Archa Murti. Archa Murti is the form of Krishna in the temple of the deity, and he might worship that very nicely, but he has no idea that Krishna is also in the heart of all the devotees. And so he should pay attention to that form of Krishna in the heart. Just like it says in the 4th chapter that just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively and render service. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge into you because he's seen the truth. And what is the truth? In the next verse, it says, when you thus understand the truth, you will know that all living beings are in me, they're part of me and are mine. So every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. And so we should see every living being as a temple of Krishna. Every body is like a temple of Krishna, and Krishna is in everyone's heart. So we have to properly respect that temple, because everyone has Krishna in their heart. We should offer all respect and be humble and not expect any respect for ourselves, but offer respect to everyone else. And in that way, we can always chant Hare Krishna. There are also many impersonalists who deride temple worship. They say that since God is everywhere, why should one restrict himself to temple worship? But if God is everywhere, is he not in the temple or in the deity? Although the personalists and impersonalists will fight one another perpetually, a perfect devotee of Krishna consciousness knows that although Krishna is the Supreme Personality, he is all-pervading as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Although his personal abode is Goloka Vrindavan, he's always staying there. Still, by his different manifestations of energy and by his plenary expansion, he is present everywhere in all parts of the material and spiritual creation. Mike, you can read the next one and the first paragraph.
Sure. Mogasha moga karmano moghajnana vichetasa rakshashim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shrita. Synonyms: mogasa, baffled hope; moga karmana, baffled in fruit of activities; moga jnana, baffled in knowledge; vichetasa, bewildered; rakshashim, demonic, asurim, atheistic, cha, and eva, certainly prakritim, nature, mohinam, bewildering, shrita, taking shelter of. Translation: those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Purport: there are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the absolute truth. For them, the fruit of devotional service, going back to Godhead, will never be tasted. Similarly, those who are engaged in fruitive, pious activities and who are ultimately hoping to be liberated from this material entanglement will never be successful either, because they deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, persons who mock Krishna are to be understood to be demonic or atheistic. As described in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā, such demonic miscreants never surrender to Krishna. Therefore, their mental speculations to arrive at the absolute truth bring them to the false conclusion that the ordinary living entity and Krishna are one and the same. With such a false conviction, they think that the body of any human being is now simply covered by material nature, and that as soon as one is liberated from this material body, there is no difference between God and himself. This attempt to become one with Krishna will be baffled because of delusion. Such atheistic and demonic cultivation of spiritual knowledge is always futile. That is the indication of this verse. For such persons, cultivation of the knowledge in the Vedic literature, like the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads, is always baffled.
Go ahead, Melissa.
It is a great offense, therefore, to consider Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to be an ordinary man. Those who are certainly deluded because they cannot understand the eternal form of Krishna. In the it is clearly stated that one who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti. And if one by chance sees his face, he should at once take a bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. People jeer at Krishna because they are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their destiny is certainly to take birth after birth in the species of atheistic and demoniac life. Perpetually, their real knowledge will remain under delusion, and gradually they will regress to the darkest region of creation.
And unfortunately, when we see a person like that, there's no Ganges around that we can take a bath in. We can just chant Hare Krishna, run away. We've got about, like maybe 7 minutes left here. Text 13. Why don't you read that? Or is it my turn? I can't remember. Oh, I'll just read it. Okay. Manas tamam parta divim prakritimastita bhajanti nanayo ananya manaso gatva bhutadi maviyam. Synonyms: Mahatmana, the great souls, too, but unto me, Partha, O son of Prita, divim, divine, prakritim, nature, ashrita, taken shelter of, bhajanti, render service, ananya manasa, without deviation of the mind, gyatva, knowing, bhuta, creation, adim, original, avyayam, inexhaustible. Translation: O son of Prita, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Go ahead, Mike. Read the first paragraph.
And purport. In this verse, the description of Mahatma is clearly given. The first sign of the Mahatma is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He is not under the control of material nature. And how is this affected? That is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, he is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivam Prakritam, divine nature. So when one is promoted in that way, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of great soul, Mahatma.
Go ahead,
Um,
Melissa.
The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma or great soul develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features such as four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. Since they are not attracted to other features of Krishna, what to speak of the demigods, they are not concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They only meditate upon Krishna in Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of Lord Krishna, of the Lord in Krishna consciousness.
You know, Melissa, you read very well. You read like you sing, very clearly and very succinctly. You know, this, you know, it says here that the devotees are not interested in they're not interested in the demigods, and they're not even interested in the four-armed form of Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is Narayan. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he has all the qualities of Krishna except for four. But like one time, Krishna was like in the forest and the gopis were searching for him because he had disappeared. And so Krishna decided to play a joke, and he transformed himself into the four-armed Vishnu form. And so the gopis came upon that form, and they said, oh, you know, they offered him all respect and say, you know, we're looking for Krishna. You know, not, we're like, they weren't even interested in Krishna in his four-armed form. So they went on looking for Krishna, you know, because they weren't interested in the Mahavishnu form of Krishna. So that is the special feature of the devotees, because they're interested in the four extra features of Krishna. Krishna is all attractive. That's one thing that Mahavishnu, or the four-armed Vishnu form, doesn't have. He also attracts all living entities by the sound of his flute. And that's how he attracted the gopis. Just by playing his flute, they dropped everything and just went out to the forest to meet him. And so that is one of the attractive features of Krishna. It kind of reminds me, you know, like they don't care about even their rules and regulations of household life, or, you know, if there was milk on the stove, they just left everything. And that's what happens to a devotee when they hear Krishna's flute, or if they are attracted to Krishna. Like one time, Krishna and his coward boyfriends were in the forest, and they were hungry, and they asked Krishna asked the coward boys to go to some brahmanas who were performing a sacrifice and ask them if they for some food. And the brahmanas were too engaged in their ritualistic activities, and they didn't offer him. So they came back to Krishna empty-handed. And so Krishna said, oh, just go and ask their wives, because their wives are my devotees, and they'll give you some food. And so the wives dropped everything. And even though they were prevented by their husbands from giving anything, they did it anyway. And that reminds me that when I first came to Krishna consciousness, I was seeing a psychiatrist, you know, and I was on medication and everything. But I was interested in going to New Vrindavan. And the guy told me, and I was interested in going to this farm community. And he said, I told him that. And he said, no, I think we should keep you here under medication, keep you observation. I got pissed. I said, you know, I want to go. He was like taking the last shred of my heart away from me, you know, so I got really mad at him. And I said, well, I'm going anyway. And I stormed out, you know, and slammed the door because I was a little crazy, but at least my heart was in the right place, you know. So that's the way it is with Krishna. If you're attracted to him, there's nothing that'll stand in your way. But we're out of time right now. Unfortunately, Benjamin probably forgot again. I'm going to try to remind him next Wednesday to set his alarm so that we can, you know, start on time, and perhaps he will join us. But, you know, these damn kids, you got to remind him every time. You know, he said he would, I'm going to make it this time, but, you know, he's obviously got, he's not on Facebook, so I can't message him. You know, I just text him. But anyway, hopefully he'll attend too, because he's a pretty smart kid. I had a conversation with him for about an hour and a half. He lives right by the Venkateshwar temple and out near, the west side there. You know where that is?
SV? Is that the SV temple?
Yes, SV, Sri Venkateshwar. Venkateshwar is a form of Krishna. Have you ever been there inside that temple? Yeah, that's kind of a cool
Gorgeous.
thing. So yeah,